Mama wati asiye say the Constitutional Review Committee the omo report aba. Omo akwa presenti omo report ama His Excellency John Dramani Mahama. Mensa enyanka report ne de. But munim se mensa ka report na eyade amema Ghana for ehu de ekoso. Now this is what I'm going to say. Reports no, there are some key proposals there or more make some of which are exciting me. I'm not going to lie. Proposals nibia or more make cry say sisia no yama presidents and so ensure say otia tax because a yana Ghana presidents no omuntia tax. Enti yama presidents in so ensure say omuntia tax inti no say presidents no epese pass taxes bia omunsu be hu say hey tax here may pass me nso me tie bio at say which I think is very good. But I want us to look at this article that talks about the key sweeping proposals. Mensaka document na we'll go through the documents bit by bit. Senya munim senya de bia me yene no. Mesrende your first time or have subscribing na click the notification bell ne so. Oyene sa latest news bia ba wonsa ebeka. Answer ne ebeko story nim no. Unim se sebe se wefu eswa. You are putting yourself at risk. Because doctors amayati asiye se efukesiye eno na de cancer eba. Eno na de diabetes enam. Eno na de kidney yariye. Sa yariya ende yesi yekum Ghana foni na efukesiye. Se wefu swa. Mesrao me wo book ema. Book ni 100 cedis pe. Ebetre nyama miensa. Sa nyama miensa no to me diso pepepe for 1 month. Wefu beba for me amene wakasei. Na mefuni. Ende same person me amefu eni. Friend number ne wo screen no eso no 055-807-4986. Ofre na o make payment a obenya book no ni PDF ewo eye WhatsApp ana obenya ni tree video. O hwe wo YouTube. Wow, hwe wo YouTube no. There is a link in the comment box, so click here partial on Sabekan book no. Now, yenko story ne so. I say the key sweeping proposals, right? Now, the Ghana's Constitution Review Committee has proposed far-reaching amendments to the 1992 Constitution, recommending a fundamental shift from what it describes as electoral democracy to a more development-driven, accountable, and people-centered system of governance. Matisa His Excellency John Dramani Mahama Kasa about the proposals. What say earliest by next year. It was a bipartisan obiatina say na proposals no there was say ya approving ya share say ya approving. Now I need people to understand say sa adie we sa review ya committee we edia be it has the potential to change Ghana. And let me explain. The 1992 Constitution was made under Rawlings. The na Ghana for yenim said the ma Rawlings eba be di so a military rule, right? Now, the 1992 Constitution reflected the military rule. And until na ende, still presidents and or taking certain decisions via nanki so say ni kwan say president ni take certain decisions no. Under President Akufo-Addo, I constantly complained. Say Ghana your mind bia. Ye dada ye ho say ye democracy. Now so we are doing autocracy, but on paper ye friend democracy. Muni amokai. It was because of senior issues be airco. Mekache say parliament was more like a rubber stamp. Debiana parliamentarians nam say omo a separate arm of government into separation of powers. Now, so the truth of the matter is say Parliament has always been controlled by the executive. And even under President Akufo-Addo, we all saw that yes, people might deny it, but we all saw that even the judiciary were controlled by the executive. In this review committee we ejuma wa modi abeyi say ye implementing nyamani bia president no etumi bia nanka first owo no nini na be free nensa because matese sisi ampo no ye implement ya president no to me and one in sample biom say ebia won appoint nkrofo bi as ministers to me ne be kwa kwahye nkrofo foforo bi nsa enti I need people to understand say sa decision where His Excellency John Dramani Mahama per se o take next year no it might virtually change Ghana. And what His Excellency John Dramani Mahama is doing is brave because president be anywhere obe feel say me wini mababa tenaso now so ye to me from same even as I am president because at the end of the day some of the proposals and that is how it feels like. It feels like say Mahama is going to lose some of his powers. And so for him to go about and approve say some of the recommendations no this is bravery. And I need people to understand that before we go into some of the issues. Mrs. Mensaka report now making kind of no biati as here. I say presenting its final reports transforming Ghana from electoral democracy to development democracy to President John Dramani Mahama, the 8-member committee chaired by Professor H. Kwesi Prempeh outlined reforms cutting across the executive, legislature, judiciary, public service, decentralization, human rights, public finance, and national security. Now, recommendations need be a refocused presidency. Also, on the executive, the committee recommends retaining the 2-term limit for presidents, but extending each term for 4 to 5. I mean, we've treated this already, so I don't want to spend time on it. But committee nature say instead of 4 years, no president can go for 5 years. Because 4-year term, na yana president so into me, and I explain. Now, also stronger parliament, cleaner politics. Also to deepen representative democracy. The Constitutional Review Committee proposes capping parliament at 276 members, strengthening constituency engagement, tightening conflict of interest rules, and expanding space for private members' bills. It calls for reforms in political party financing, internal party democracy, and the establishment of an independent regulator for political parties. The committee also urges a serious national study into adopting proportional representation to improve inclusion of women, youth, and marginalized groups. Independent electoral and governance bodies. Parliament committee nature say ye maintaining the number of parliamentarians to 276. That's what it's saying. Or tremwa send nkrofo nso enye sika eba parliament no yenhwem. We need reforms in how political parties are being financed. Internal party democracy. Na yensan so establish an independent regulator of political parties. Send yende yewo independent body to say the Electoral Commission and an independent body to say ebia shraj no yensan so nya an independent body bia ebe regulate political parties no. Now, the committee is talking about independent electoral and governance bodies. Also, the report recommends restructuring the Electoral Commission, National Commission for Civic Education, and National Media Commission with clearer appointment processes, security of tenure, improved funding, and stronger regulatory mandates while safeguarding media freedom. Into what I say, EC, the National Commission for Civic Education, and the National Media Commission, no, sebe, omo appointments no, enye clear. Yemo mu security of tenure etre se ebia se yefo bi as electoral commissioner. Yema the security of tenure say president bi antumi mba se wo baba be yi na free so. Or tenaso for 8 years or tenaso for 8 years. Nembre so a na ebi obi foforo aba. I say at the heart of the report is a proposal to constitutionally anchor a long-term national development plan aligned with annual budgets and overseen by a strengthened National Development Planning Commission. Inti Ghana yen have a national plan. Na Ghana for will be anti as say your national plan any within the next 20 years. Baby a person of no edru any. Inti emfa ho say political party bi beba. National plan na ye de ato so no an was say oye den udi so. That is what they are saying. It recommends reforms to land administration, natural resource governance, mining revenue allocation to host communities, environmental protection. Inti moi moti baby a company say to gold no. Mo ni beje sa de we ho because a committee ni tre mo a. Yen sha ase say mo nso mo benya bibi. Inti uti kuro bi so ye to gold wo ho a say kuro na o say etumi siesie no. De ntia na ye to kuro wo gold bi so a say kuro no be ko ho na bia kwan kra eni ho. Including recognition of ecocide, and the creation of new oversight bodies such as an independent fiscal council and a natural resources commission. As the public finance and state enterprises, the Constitutional Review Committee proposes stricter controls on tax exemptions, public borrowing and debt-enhanced independence for the central bank and government statistician, and constitutional recognition of the State Interest and Governance Authority, SIGA, to improve corporate governance of state-owned enterprises, including merit-based appointments and fixed tenures for CEOs. Rebuilding trust in accountability institutions to restore public confidence. The committee recommends reform, not abolition, of the Council of State, sweeping judicial reforms covering appointments, tenure, and removal, and financial independence, and the creation of a new constitutional anti-corruption and ethics commission. Now, what I'm getting is that this committee is calling for a lot of creation of new independent bodies, right? That's what I'm getting. That it's calling for creating independent body way, creating independent body way, creating independent body way. You see, that's what I'm getting. I say, professionalizing the public service. I say the report calls for depoliticizing the public service, strengthening the public services commission, protecting public officers from political interference, enforcing assets declaration, addressing unexplained wealth, and introducing career sanctions for misconduct. Now, sa a constitution ye passia. Senior police are buying nabia government insa wom and ye police for wom we events saying are buying obi eko soldier na o say politician bi na di nanim sa nyamani ni na trese ni na etu obetwa. I say rights, inclusion and social justice on human rights. The CLC proposes reforms on multiple citizenship, gender equality, disability rights, digital privacy, access to health, housing, food and education, legal aid, fair trial guarantees, and the abolition of death penalty. It also seeks, said death penalty there, it has been abolished already. And it also seeks to close discrimination gaps affecting women, Zongo communities, and historically mobile groups. I say decentralization and local development, declaring that all development is local. The committee recommends the election of metropolitan, municipal, and district chief executives, creation of an independent devolution commission, fiscal decentralization reforms, and clearer roles for traditional authorities while keeping chiefs out of active party politics. Security sector reforms. The report proposes consolidating security services into a single constitutional framework, strengthening civilian oversight, clarifying the deployment of the armed forces for internal security, and reforming police and prisons governance structures. Into security service nensono yemfo mu ni nambom na yempe a single constitutional framework emo mu ni na you make sure say armed forces no for internal security senior yana soldiers in Semba, in 10 hours, some way ni kwanse soja ni ede ne ho hyem kra na soja ni de ne ho hyem no yenye clear on science and semne so. A living constitution. Finally, the CLC urges reforms to make constitutional amendments more flexible, including provisions for popular initiative to prevent constitutional obsolescence and keep the supreme law responsive to Ghana's evolving needs. The constitution, no, a living constitution. You can say living constitution as and when, because next year bibi to miaba na nyama we ase sesa. Ati ase. Say yan hedi ye na say yan so yan sesa. Yes say nipa bia dane aboa won so dane bi. Say we ase sesa na yan hwe ye na yan so yan sesa. Ase we ase ko nenim ni yan ya kechi. And I think that this thing, no, a living constitution, it has always been there. That is why we have constitutional amendments. What you say? Because we've made it a living constitution. As taken together, the recommendations amount to the most comprehensive blueprint for constitutional reform since 1992. One that seeks to stabilize Ghana's democracy, cut the cost of politics, strengthen accountability, and re-engineer the state for long-term national development. So this is the final recommendation. Okay, so I think I have the document here. This is the document. The document, 127 pages. Let me download the document. I will treat it, and then you be ready right from the document. Ne amagana for atiasie. Ebusian for it will be biase, and then your first time ewa you know what to do. Mesremo mamefa we intrim ansana we call it a day. Say opese otro wasi na ankoye watro wasi ankoye watron of deck ankoye na pese otro no fofra mesrao. The only school I recommend the amount is Sanctuary College. Otro ewo school we are distinction. Obronika said distinction and actually say more year dear pano oka humbi. School way obi biara wa exams so obi anya distinction. Frewomo 0537730272. Member subium 0537730272. Ebusian for we do biase.